So, are Dunlap products dead in the water, or are they worth looking at today? I'll explain a little bit more in this whole video on if they're worth it or not. So, long story short, when I stopped playing golf, I originally used to play the Cleveland Zx5 Tour Black Pearls. To give you an idea of who these were actually geared for, these actually saw a PGA Tour play for a couple of years. This is a true player's iron for a cavity back. There's nothing wrong with them, they're great clubs. Well, they have the original box grooves, and unfortunately those eat golf ball covers, and I really can't afford to keep replacing golf balls because I'm not sponsored. So, modern day, I started looking at different things of what clubs can I go to. Cleveland doesn't sell anything that's worthwhile other than your game improvement clubs. The XL Zips are pretty great if you want to hit the ball relatively straight in a generalized direction at a good high trajectory. I'm not all about that. So, give you a quick rundown. I have 110-ish mile-an-hour swing speed. My back is getting better. My swing speed is increasing a little bit as it used to. I originally used to have 118. So I need something that's gonna be less high trajectory and something that's gonna be a little bit more playable because I still have a pretty good ball striking capability. I wanted to get this ZX7s, and honestly, I kind of felt they were pretty good comparable to the Clevelands, but I wanted to have something that had a little bit more forgiveness for mishits just in case my back started bothering me or my knee. So I went with the player's distance iron. The ZX5s ended up landing in a middle category that I felt didn't exist in any other brand. The uniqueness of the fact that player's distance club in most other brands generally seems to land more towards just distance side of it. Even my Golf Spy's review basically explained that this was the best true middle of the road bridge between that game improvement to your players. This leans more towards the player's side, it just has a little bit stronger lofts. The fact that it's got a nice meaty sole to it helps out with that too. I'll explain a little bit more about that in a minute. So, modern day Dunlap brands doesn't seem to be doing as well as others, even though they are making fantastic things. These clubs will run you an MSRP of about $1,200 US for 4-through pitch and wedge. That is kind of a steep price, but you are getting what you pay for, especially since these are forged clubs. They don't offer, and as far as I can remember, Srixon has never offered non-forged irons. It was kind of a stepping stone that I had to go and bite the bullet on, especially when you're paying for quality such as these. There's a couple things that I'd like to note about the ZX5s versus the 7s and the 4s. Just real quick, the 4s are going to be geared more towards your player's irons. If you are an intermediate player, playing the 5s as your normal set, you could swap out, say, your long irons for the 4s to give you that added distance, forgiveness, and so on. Whereas if you're playing the 7s as your normals, you could go and replace your long irons and stuff with the ZX5s to give you that added little bit out of it. So, with all that being said, these are actually a lot more surprising with a lot of technology packed into it than I ever expected. I didn't just look at these, I looked at a couple other brands. Honestly, it was either these or the Wilsons that I came down to, and the last little bit, the reason I picked these is feel and sound. The sound of these are a little bit higher pitch clicky. The best way I could describe it is it's got a really bright, high pitched ping when you hit it. Well, not necessarily a ping, but a good click. It's noticeable versus other irons that you hear. If somebody is hitting it on the range or on the course, you'll notice it almost immediately. It's not, again, insane, but you'll notice it. The looks of it is the other thing that was a selling point to me versus the Wilsons, as for the fact that it felt softer on impact. These have a satin finish to it, and it's not high gloss and polished finish. These aren't gonna blind you in the sun when you go to set them up at address. As much as I love the Wilson products, I can't get over the fact that that polished finish that they have, the mirror look, as great as it is, just blinds the hell out of you. So I've watched so many other reviews myself just to try to get some ideas on how I could go and present these. I have my own flood of thoughts, ideas, and information about them. But a couple of the things that have stood out is the weight. Some people have said that these feel really heavy. I actually, to be honest, coming from the Clevelands, these feel light to me. It's not drastically light, but they do feel light to me. And I am not playing the stock shafts in it. I actually swapped out the KBS Tour lights that these came with the True Temper Dynamic Golds. Just to go and demonstrate, I do have them in my Clevelands as well. I have been fitted for them for a long time, and I keep coming back to them because it helps lower my flight and lower my trajectory. That's actually the same thing. It helps lower the spin and the flight. So what this allowed me to actually do is add just a little bit more weight, a little bit more control, and then it helps tone it down. So one of the characteristics that I was concerned about, especially coming back after 10 years, is what are the major differences in the technology that these clubs offer? I was afraid coming to the new Modern V grooves, it was going to actually reduce the amount of spin, especially since these do have stronger lofts than your traditional clubs. It's only by a couple degrees, but it is a little bit noticeable on some of the longer irons that you're hitting. These actually have a tremendous amount of spin, especially for running dynamic golds. You know, it's supposed to be low flight, low spin. These actually counteract itself pretty well because of the thick, meaty sole that are on these compared to your normal players clubs. These actually add a decent amount of lower end weight that's going to create a higher MOI, causing the ball to come up a lot more. It actually has a good amount of spin that helps actually balance it out pretty well. I didn't notice that much in a change in distance, but I will say when you're sticking a 4-iron at 205 yards onto a green and having it land about 2 feet away from impact and stick, again, I got it charted today on a couple different launch monitors that I'm hitting my 4-iron with 5,500-ish RPM. It's kind of insane to think that I'm getting that much backspin on a 4-iron. These have more than enough span and control for what they are. Knowing that they're players distance, it does kind of knock down a little bit of the spin to give you that flight in the air, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I kind of had a little bit of a fight on myself because I hit the ball naturally high as it is, that I want to bring that flight down, but I can't get over the fact that these land so soft on the greens with that nice deep trajectory. This gives you a combination of a good flight, amazing spin, fantastic control. Some of the little tiny things about this club technology-wise that I feel needs to be touched on is this is marketed all over the club and the website with Srixon's mainframe technology. They get it across all their clubs. It is a face technology thing that they have for backing to go and help. You know, you go to the website and you read all the stuff that explains it for you. In short, this is a hollowed out back. It's not a hollow body, but it is a traditional cavity back. They milled the face down as thin as possible to go and give it a nice springy hot face, as well as reduce his weight and puts it in the perimeters and everything. I believe that contributes to part of the reason why these feel actually quite a bit light for me. If you actually take a look at the medallion that's inserted in the back, just around the perimeters of it, you could actually see the milled out back of the face. So the other thing that I need to touch on, not necessarily the most important thing, they've been doing it since the CG7s came out. They do have a laser milling on the face that gives it a slightly rough texture. So when you have a clean face, good shot out of the fairway or whatever, it gives you just that little bit more added spin. If it lasts more than a month or a couple sand shots, I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I'm not looking at it underneath the microscope. If you care about stuff like that, it is in the technology. So moving forward, the sole, the Tour V sole or whatever Srixon's calling it, I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal, but this is probably one of the best shining examples out of this whole entire club that has amazed me so much. I can't get over how nice of a feature that this is in these irons. It's probably overlooked with a lot of people because they just want TaylorMade because they hit it so far, or they want ping because they're very forgiving. You know, you name it why you're enjoying these different clubs for your own preferences. This sole basically makes it almost, I dare say, unchunkable. So I played last week at a course for the first time in a while. I don't really have any footage of it, long story, but I hit a couple shots that I should have chunked it and taken, a giant bacon strip of a divot, but it just kind of bounced. It more or less made it just a fat shot, and the rest of the forgiveness made it go almost 10 yards short from what I normally would hit it. I can't get over with literally just how forgiving that made that. It's definitely something worth looking into in that aspect if you have a tendency to hit them a little fat or a little chunky, or if you play in a damp environment, kind of like I do here in the Pacific Northwest. This sole will actually help out a lot, way more than you actually might think. So to give a good example of some of the things with spin width, what I got out of these, I got about, again, 5,300 RPM was pretty average to 5,500 RPM out of my 4-iron, hitting it 205 yards. The 7-iron, I was getting about 55 to 6,000 RPM, depending on how I was hitting it. If I was trying to hit down it a little bit more to keep a low shot in, add more spin to it, I was getting well over 6,000 with ease. My pitching wedge, this thing is just like throwing darts. It is so accurate and easy to hit, very consistently at 135 yards for me, anywhere between 7,500 to, at times I was hitting it at about 9,000 RPM. These clubs have no problem giving you stopping power as well as accuracy. The fact that these soles are so thick, the fact that it flies just a bit higher than other clubs that I have hit in this category, it gives you the best performance of stop and drop, or if you want to put a little bit of spin to back it up. They're universal in the aspect of the player's category, but they still give you that little bit of added distance because it's just stronger lofts. Who are these marketed for? I honestly kind of agree and disagree with most people as well as Srixon to it. So ultimately, golf is a game of feel. This is not going to come down to, are you good enough to play these? Am I playing blades? No, because I don't personally like the feel of them. I like the spin. I like the flight being so low. I don't like the feel of how harsh they are. They remind me way too much of when I started playing golf, literally with an old set that was a hand-me-down to the neighbors when they were made back in the 70s. And they had persimmon woods, and it felt like you were hitting a tire iron against a rock, even on good shots. So I like having a softer feel, but with a solid, good, responsive feedback. And by going into something like this, it allows me to still have that good feedback, whether it be audibly or physically through my hands. It's not punishing to hit these. These make you want to continue to hit them. These feel really solid, and I can't get over just really the quality of how far these have come along. These are marketed on Srixon's website more towards your mid to low handicap golfers. I dare say if you're very consistent at hitting pretty center in the club face, you should have no problem playing these. If you don't need assistance in distance because you have a faster swing, but you still want to have a little bit of assistance in height and forgiveness on mishits, these are going to be your go-to when it comes to looking in that category. If you're a low handicapper to scratch player, you're very good and very consistent, but you have some off days, these are also a good fallback that you could go to. I personally think ultimately in the long run, Dunlop really hasn't let me down at all. I'm not gonna say that I'm a diehard Dunlop fan, and I'm saying the Umbrella Corp as a whole. I've always enjoyed playing Srixon. I've always enjoyed playing Cleveland. On the other hand of that, I also do like some TaylorMade, and I do like Wilson Staff a lot. Every single time that I end up going looking for different products, I always end up looking at Srixon because I look at what's not the most popular things on the market. They tend to kind of have a little bit of a hidden gem in there that most people don't really recognize. And personally, I think for 2023 to 2024, and who knows, maybe next year, the ZX5s are probably one of the best hidden gems that really isn't getting as much recognition. Especially across YouTube as a whole, it's always the 7 or the 4s. Realistically, everybody should be looking at the 5s. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of information that might help you gain some interest in wanting to purchase these, or even just try them out to see if you like them or not. Or you can even look at these in a combination set between the 7 and the 4s, or even the blades. You can make a combination set of all of them if you want. Srixon actually nailed that part in the marketing aspect. So if you like this content, or you like to see other things like this, or you just want to go and say what you're playing or what you even thought of these yourself, please like, subscribe, leave a comment down below. But most of all, have a good one. Keep it in the fairway.